Potsdam, the three delegations had completed the final official statement. The Big Three had decided on the complete destruction of the Nazi ideology and all the measures necessary for making sure that Germany would never again be able to threaten world peace. The dictator's xenophobia and paranoia played an important role in forming policy for a new world. Stalin had joined one battle after the next throughout his lifetime. There had always been a powerful group that had to be crushed and that the dictator persecuted in order to protect himself. His new campaign was against the Jews. Thousands of artists and intellectuals were deported to the gulags. Their crime was cosmopolitanism. The halo of glory that shone on the head of the man of steel throughout Russia was soon to be extinguished. The new situation went back to being very similar to that of before. Little food, shortages of means of production, new sacrifices imposed on the population, and an impenetrable iron curtain so as to totally isolate the Russians from the capitalist world. Bolshevik consciousness returned to being popular. In the meantime, tension between the West and the East worsened. The United States opposed the Bolshevik political development in progress in the East with the Marshall Plan, with which it got a Western Europe of American influence back on its feet so that it would face up to the Eastern Communist bloc. In March of 1947, the United States officially endorsed the Cold War. America undertook to help any nation that stood up to communism. Mutual distrust grew worse. Recurring crises kept the world with bated breath as it was faced with the danger of a new war. Four years after the United States, Stalin had the atomic bomb as well. Russia was a nuclear power. Moscow, December the 21st, 1949, at the Bolshoi Theatre. Stalin is celebrating his 70th birthday. It is a triumph of the personality cult. Everybody is elated. Father of the people, humanity's greatest genius, leader of all progressive humanity. The Stalin cult had reached its zenith. Joseph Stalin's last years were years of decline. Vasily and Svetlana were children born from his marriage with Nadezhda. Vasily, a rash young man addicted to alcohol, left school for a career as an Air Force pilot, and Stalin made him the youngest general of the Soviet armed forces. Svetlana, who was her father's darling, came into open conflict with him as an adult. The old dictator was afraid of the people and of his vassals. He was distrustful and felt he was surrounded by enemies. He trusted no one, not even himself, on what to say in a certain circumstance. Stalinism by now seemed to be old, like its architect. Russia, however, had become the second industrial and military power in the world and owed its new facet to the man of steel. Rumors flew at the end of 1952 that the Kremlin's physician had conspired to assassinate the father of the country. It was only an opportunity to prove to the people that whoever holds high offices can not only save lives, but kill as well. It was an old strategy of Stalin's that served to incite the masses and justify a new wave of purges. All of that was to come to an end only upon his death. On March the 2nd, 1953, Stalin had a stroke, and his orderlies had to look on, unable to help. On March the 5th, the official press agency announced that Stalin had died due to a brain hemorrhage. He was 73 years old. His body was placed next to Lenin in the Red Square mausoleum. Amongst the people, there were those who wept at the news of his death and those who sighed with relief. Sirens throughout the communist world sounded for 1 minute in sign of mourning. Vasily attended the funeral drunk. He was later discharged from the army and then spent the rest of his days in prison. Svetlana left the country her father had ruled with an iron fist and applied to the West for political asylum. On August the 7th, 1971, the last edition of the Soviet Historical Encyclopedia published criticisms of Stalin on the senseless massacres of the 1930s, on the purges, on his mistakes in handling the war, and on his mistakes he made in reorganizing the economy. But the blame laid on the dictator is also of the system in which he found himself working, blame that would have been the same if anybody else had been in his shoes. Stalin, the Red God. His monuments were erected to keep watch over every village. Today, his pictures are gathering dust in junk dealers' shops and are sought only by souvenir collectors.